Hello, hello. Good day to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're located. Welcome to our teaching speaking webinar today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. And a warm welcome to you, those of you who are watching, and those who will watch the recording of this webinar, which will be available uh, later. So please say hi in the chat and tell us where you are located. We have people from the States, South Africa, welcome France, Grenada, England, Ontario, Canada, LA, California, South Africa again, Johannesburg, Romania. Wow, what an international crowd. Excellent. Nice to have you all here. So let's get started. So, my name is Sheila Baker. I'm located in Toronto, Canada. And in today's webinar, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about teaching speaking. And I'll be presenting you today. I'm located in Toronto, Canada, and I have been a teacher for about 150 years. It feels like that sometimes, but for over 25 years. And I have been doing teacher training for almost a decade now, and I'm loving it. I've taught students from pardon me, from every continent except for Antarctica, where only penguins live. But South America, North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, um, all over. So I guess I get friends wherever I go now, including Spain, Mexico, China, lots of people from China, Korea, Japan, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Somalia, Brazil, Peru, Chile, Mexico, and of course, lots of immigrants that come to Canada. So pretty much everywhere. So let's see. So we're going to talk about teaching speaking and how we can develop this skill for our students, and then we'll discuss potential problems and solutions to those problems. So let's take a look at my slide here. Remove that comment now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for mentioning where you are. Oh, we have someone from Mexico and BC, Canada, and Latvia as well. Hello, hello. Pink waving. So cute. All right. So, why teach speaking in the EFL classroom? Well, basically, speaking is part of everyday life. So, we want them to be ready to tackle it, and it also gives us a chance to practice the language that we're teaching, some of the vocabulary, we're able to recycle it, some of the grammar and functions like agreeing and disagreeing, for example, levels of formality. And it gives students a chance to express themselves so that way they can be more involved and engaged, and this way we can get to know what their interests are. And of course, it also gives a break from the other elements of language, from grammar teaching and listening and reading, pronunciation. But those can be integrated with speaking. It is one of the most difficult aspects for students to master because it is a productive skill, just like writing is a productive skill. Whereas listening and reading, they are receptive skills. They receive the information, and it's easier for them to do self-check and to improve. But for as far as speaking and writing concerned, they need somebody to help them, whether they're on the right track, where they're making mistakes, where they can make improvements. So, but think about what is involved in speaking. They have to generate the ideas, they have to think of vocabulary, what grammar to use, what connectors to use, pronunciation, how to put it all together, how to organize it, if they're talking to somebody, they also have to respond to the person. So there's a lot involved, even if you do it in your first language, never mind doing it in a second language. So it's important to give students as many opportunities as possible to speak, express themselves, and use the target structures that we're teaching them. And we want to give them a chance to use controlled activities and also freestyle activities where they entirely come up with the language using the topic that we give them. And this will help them gain confidence in speaking. And one of my students from the Dominican Republic, he said, "Teacher, this is the first time I'm able to do an interview in English after having taken the ESL course." So they feel that they can do it, and not only do they feel it, but they actually can do it, and they go ahead and do the interviews in English, and then they get jobs. So he did end up landing a job where he uses both Spanish and English, and that's just one of the many examples. So we want to increase their self-esteem, their motivation, and we try to reduce anxiety as much as possible. So we want to create that environment. So make it fun, make it fun. Let them have fun with it and enjoy this interaction. So, what is considered a speaking task? Often we do speaking with other activities, but if the sole purpose, the sole objective is speaking, then it is considered a speaking task. And you have to make it purposeful. You have to have some kind of an outcome. By the end of this activity, students will be able to know phrases to agree and disagree and to politely do so. So you want to have that objective in mind when you plan your lesson. It's not just chatting time, it's not just to kill time. It never is, right? We always want to have some kind of an outcome. And also provide the context for them. You're talking to somebody at a cafe. So it could be a customer and as they say, barista, or it could be two friends talking, or it could be uh, a potential business partner and a business owner talking. So you have to provide that for them, and it's good to provide models as well. And then after, let them practice with some control, and then let them have full control. And one more thing that people forget, we have to give them feedback. And when do we give feedback? We'll talk about all of those things as well. Let's move on. So, what is not considered a speaking task? Just answering comprehension questions, because those are related to either to reading or listening. Gap fill activities. Again, there's not much speaking going on there. Yes, they do might speak, but it's not considered a speaking activity. Reading text aloud. No, it's not speaking. It is public reading. That's why when they're doing presentations, I don't let them just to read from their cue cards. Yes, they can have cards, but don't just read from them, because that's public reading. We're not interested in that. We want to see your presentation skills, for example. So when we do these activities, the comprehension activities, for example, these are just the speaking is just a byproduct of the main activity, but it is not the focus. All right, let's continue. So, how do we run a speaking task? First of all, we obviously need to prepare, just like we with any other activity. Don't assume that students will be go on and talk about a topic that you give them spontaneously, because that might be hard even in their first language, right? So we do need to help them, provide them with some vocabulary, with some ideas that they can talk about. You can have some reading first or listening, like showing a TED talk, and then have them talk about it. But if it's something like what's your preference? Where would you like to go on vacation? Then we don't really need much modeling or much input material because they would be able to answer that. Or what's your favorite color? Things like that. But make sure that it's purposeful. And when you also have to give preparation time for the students because they need time to process the information, they need time to come up with ideas, and it could be a set time or just give them time and see when they're ready. For example, if they take the TOEFL exam, you familiar with TOEFL? Test of English as a foreign language. It's an international English proficiency exam. If they take that exam, there are six separate tasks in the speaking exam. And the first one, and they give them 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to respond. So the whole thing is 1 minute, but notice the preparation time is not that much. So again, they would have practiced it by the time they get there. They can take notes, but there's no time to write down sentences in 15 seconds. So just words. They can write down words and then they put those ideas into sentences. As far as IELTS is concerned, that's another speaking exam, International English Language Testing System. There are three parts in that exam, and each part has its components. And part two is where students are given a topic and they're allowed to prepare for 1 minute, and then they speak for a minute or two. So that's a little bit more generous with the time, and the students can just finish whenever they want within that 2 minute time frame. But the 1 minute prep time, that's pretty generous. That's better than 15 seconds. 15 seconds is not that long, unless you're sitting in a dentist chair, right? Then it's a long time, but no, no, no. Not a speaking situation. And sometimes there's no time, right? If you're having a conversation with someone, it's a give and take, give and take. There's no time to say, oh, let me just grab my dictionary, I'll be right back, right? There's no time for that. You have to come up with an answer with the language that you're able to produce. All right, and then ensure that they have the prompts, the questions, and then the language that they need to complete it. So we want to match the task to their level, and the instructions have to be clear and simple. And it's a good idea to check to make sure if they have understood the instructions. How do we do that? Do you understand the instructions? Is that a good way? No, because they are likely to say yes, even if they don't understand it. Why did they say yes? Well, they don't want to be embarrassed. They want to please the teacher. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to lose face or look kind of stupid. So they just say yes, right? So, what would be a better way? All right, Carlos, can you tell me what we're supposed to do? So you ask one of the students to tell you the instructions, and if he can tell you, they're most likely the other students got the instructions too, or if they didn't, they can hear it from him. Okay. And another important thing is after giving them processing time, give them enough time to do it, and just monitor. Don't interfere. Right? Let them do their thing. Whether you're teaching in person or if you are teaching online, end up teaching online, just put them in a breakout room and you can go and monitor. You can go and visit the rooms in the background, and you don't have to say anything. You can just see how they're doing. And if they need help, offer help, of course. But don't say anything. Don't interrupt them. Why should we not interrupt? Well, it would interrupt their flow, their train of thought. It's also unnatural. It can be discouraging for the students too because they become more self-conscious. They really start to pay attention to grammar and vocabulary, and we don't want that. We want them to be as natural as possible. So how are you going to remember the mistakes? Well, just you can just take notes. If you might want to try to remember them all, or just take notes and then provide feedback at the end of the activity. And this also prevents singling out a student, right? You're not going to call on names, but you just review the general mistakes that people had, and always start out with something nice. You heard a pep talk, so start out with positive, and then give the evaluation, the room for improvement, and then finish on a positive note. Right, again, to be upbuilding, but there is that evaluation part. That room for improvement has to be included, and um, uh, because we don't want to point a finger at a student, because you know what happens when you point a finger at someone. There are three fingers pointing back at you, right? So it's better just to give general feedback without naming any names, and the students know whether they have made that mistake and whether they're the ones who made it. And it could apply to other students, right? So what to give when to what to mention, what to give feedback on. If it's a mistake that many students make, it's good to mention. If it's a mistake that one student makes repeatedly, it's good to mention, like subject verb agreement. He study should be he studies with an S, for example, or the plural S, right? Several windows, the S, or any questions, the S, they tend to miss. Okay. Then it's good to give feedback. Or if it really interferes the understanding of what the student is saying. For example, if it's really garbled and you can't understand it. For example, they might say government. Government. What do you mean? Government. Okay. You mean government. Okay. Good. Can you say it? Can you say it? Government. Okay. Good. And that way we can check to see if they can produce it. And another reason why we give feedback at the end of an activity, because it brings closure to the activity, right? It's a nice way to finish it. Students did their thing; they did the best they could, so they've got a good feeling. And then you give them this feedback as closure, and then you can move on to the next activity. And you also want to monitor the activity in case it fizzles out. Like if the students dry up, they have nothing else to say, then you can bring it, uh, you can close the activity earlier than scheduled. And the feedback we've talked about. Let's move on. So, as far as interactions are concerned, it's good to put students in different groups. If it's a whole class discussion, that means only one student is talking. And you want to watch out for dominating students. So you can ask them to raise their hand, or you can call in students so that they all equally participate. Um, to make sure that they all participate. Yeah, one of my colleagues, she got these the sticks from the dollar store, and she puts the name of every student, and then she just draws a name, so then it's random. And if you find that the energy is going down, they're running out of ideas, just switch the partners, right? If they need to be re-energized. And the ideal number for language learning is 12. Right. That's ideal for language learning, because you can have not just whole class discussions, but you can have two groups of six, you can have groups of four, you can have groups of three, and of course, pairs. Now, if you have pairs, two students in a group, that maximizes their speaking time. That means each of them have to speak. Nobody can just sit back and not say anything. So even the shy students can be involved in that case, and that is the best thing to do. But don't do just pairs, of course, but try to maximize the time that students spend in pairs, doing activities in pairs. And the different task types are listed here. So you can have a discussion about the environment. How can we reduce the impact of plastic on the environment? You can interview, you can pretend to be Mark Zuckerberg. Here's your chance to change things on Facebook, or Obama, or maybe Trump. You can role play. Let's say you go to a greenhouse and you need gardening advice and finding good seeds. Spring is coming up. You want to plant some seeds. Another thing is ranking. Now, ranking is asking students to put things in order. For example, what is your favorite thing to do in your free time? Give me 5 activities and put these in order, right? Start with number 1 being your most favorite and number 5 being your least favorite, and just put them in order. So that requires higher level thinking skills, not just listing them, but ranking them, and they need to be able to justify their selection. Debate, again, you want to model that, how to do a debate. And students need to be able to express their ideas, include useful language. You can provide a structure and then a clear outcome. And it's good to announce at the end who won the debate. So you can assign a student to be the judge, or you can do that yourself. But important thing that they all participate in it. And then here are some other task types like problem solving, which can be really useful. In one of the classes, we actually solved actual problems. This student from Korea came to Toronto and he couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep because it's very humid there. And we figured out where he lived in Korea had a very different humidity level. So we actually got him to get a dehumidifier. So that dehumidified the room that he was sleeping in, just the bedroom. And after that, he was able to sleep. So this was an actual problem. But of course, it doesn't have to be a problem. You could do matchmaking, just pretend. And stay away from controversial topics like religion, politics, money, abortion, things like that, because then that can get a little bit dicey, and then students get into an argument. We don't want that. We just want them to have a chance to practice their speaking, and we want them to enjoy it. All right. InfoGap is where you provide information to student A and student B. And student A has some information blocked out, and they have to get it from student B. And then they take turns, because then student B also has some part of the text or a picture blocked out, and they have to get the information from student A. So they cannot do it alone. They need to get the information from the other student, telling a story, anecdote, and then you can see, okay, which word tense was used if it's storytelling. So it could be a lot of past tense or simple present. So you can do a little bit of grammar, or what were the new words. You can do vocabulary. What words were hard to pronounce. You can do a little bit of pronunciation as well. Or you can get them to write about it afterwards. Presentations are also popular, can be with or without slides. If they use slides, I ask them to share the screen up to 50% of the time. Oh, I forgot to mention, we're going to have a Q&A session. So feel free to ask questions if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer those in the second half of the webinar. You just put them in the chat if you have questions. So where was I? Yeah, so slides. If they share their slides, it's up to 50%, because some of the time I just want to see the students, right? So we want to have that face-to-face, whether it's online or in person. We don't want them to share the whole time. We actually want them to to have eye contact with the audience, which is essential. All right. And presentations, yes, they do take quite a bit of time to set up and prepare the prompt and then let them do their research and work together as a group. But they're a very worthwhile task because they get so much out of it. And you can individualize it by letting them choose topics that they want to talk about. A popular one we have done in an EAP class, English for Academic Purposes, was animals. They all got to choose an animal and they got to really research that, like their habitat, their diet, whether they live a social or solitary life. And they used a lot of academic vocabulary in those presentations. It was great. Another thing what we did was subliminal messages in advertising. You know, those hidden messages like Amazon. You know, it's got that smiley face. You know what it means? It goes from A to Z or Z in the States. That means they get everything from A to Z, right? Not just books, right? So, and then they had to do a marketing campaign where they came up with a product, a slogan for it, a price, target audience, and they had to create a commercial for that. And my teenager students from China came up with the idea of a chewing gum. So if you buy this, it was $99. It's pretty expensive. But if you buy this gum, you give it to a person, that person will fall in love with you. So you can see where their mindset mind what their mind was on. But we had a lot of fun with that. All right. And then let's think of some potential problems. So I want you to think of some potential problems and put it in the chat. What do you think could happen with the speaking activity? What are some of the issues that can happen? Sometimes you have an uneven number of students, like 13, and then you can't really do pairs. You might have dominant students that want to do all the speaking, like Lisa Simpson, or they just don't know what to say. They just don't have enough background knowledge on the topic. That's also a possibility. Or they just dry up early. Or they might ask you to correct everything during a fluency task. Okay. Right. Right. So yes, M said uneven number can lead to three in a group and one may not have a chance to speak. Yes. Students being nervous to participate. Yes, they can be nervous, they can be shy, they can be worried about mistakes, especially adults. Children, not so much, but especially adults. They're can be very self-conscious sometimes. Yeah, they can get off task. Yeah, as long as they answer the question, they do the task. I let them be off task sometimes because I want to give them that chance that discussion as long as they have finished the task, what I asked them to do. I don't mind if they get off task sometimes because it gives them a chance to get to know the other students, but they have to get the task done first. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So let's see some of the solutions we can use. So you can make it adaptable for groups of three. Let's say one of the activities I do is they have to pick a card and it will say Pepsi. One of them has to hate it, the other one has to love it. It doesn't matter what the real opinion is, that's the game. And they have to give me three reasons why they love it, why they hate it. So that requires two people. And the third person can be the judge as to who did a better job, and they can give them feedback. And then they can rotate A, B, C. They can rotate. Yep. And then, of course, you want to allocate the pairs carefully. You can put the two dominant students together to let them fight it out. Or you can put a weaker student with a stronger student, because the stronger student can get a boost of self-confidence by helping the weaker one, and the weaker one can learn from the stronger student. And then preparation is, of course, it's so important to give them time to process the information, lots of prompts and examples, model it for them as well. All right. And then here are some further solutions. You can switch partners. Every time we go into a breakout room on Zoom, for example, I always mix up the groups, right? And that way they get to talk to different ones. And then just tell them this time the focus is fluency. We're not worried about accuracy so much, but just focus on fluency, right? So they need to fill the time. If you give them 5 minutes, they need to use that time speaking for 5 minutes. And then let them know that yes, you will correct the errors at the end, so they don't need to worry about that so much. All right. Let's see. Okay. So that's that for now. That's exactly half an hour. And just a reminder that all the previous webinars are available on our TEFL Academy YouTube channel. So you're welcome to view them and hopefully learn from them. And now I'll open up the floor to Q&A, and I'll look through the chat to see if anyone has asked some questions. And then at the end, well, thank you for attending. At the end, I'm also going to put this in the chat for you to complete a short survey. All right, let's go back to Q&A. Let's see, do we have any questions so far? Let me know. Okay, Helen. Is this message for somebody, Helen, or is this for me? Adding you to a study group? Oh, it's for Greca. Okay, good. Yeah, Greca, hopefully you got that message. You guys got a study group going on. Excellent. Okay. Anne says, a lot of people are afraid of speaking in public. If we find a trait in our students, do you recommend that the teacher do an exercise to relax their before speaking? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the deep breathing for sure. It helps. Three times. Let's do this together. Let's take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Now, how do you feel? Hopefully calmer, better. You got more oxygen to the brain. Another thing I get my students to do if they're giving presentations and they're afraid to look into people's eyes, I ask them to look at the eyebrows. And you can't really tell whether they're looking at the eyes or the eyebrows, and that tends to help them. Yeah, for sure. Anything you can do to help them calm down. I also provide them with a structure. If you're giving, what is your favorite? Let's see. What is your most memorable thing for you? What do you remember the most? And if you have a question like this, you can just answer it. Give the answer, give 2 reasons, give 2 examples, and give a summary. So I use that PRES formula: preference, reasons, examples, and summary. And now that they have the structure, they are much more confident to do that. And I model that. Response. You have a 15 seconds to prepare, 45 seconds to speak. I model it for them, and then I ask them to do it. Answer that question as well, the most memorable moment in your life, and I give them 15 seconds, and then I pair them up, And they give their answer, their partner gives feedback, and then they switch. And then I take it up by asking who heard a good response. And if somebody says, "Oh, my partner gave a good response," I ask that partner, "What did you say?" And then we just analyze that one response. But we know that's a good response. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for that. And Ria asks, "I'd like to teach preschoolers. They're not going to do all the tasks. What tasks are they going to do?" All right. With preschoolers, of course, you have to simplify it. Just like VIP Kid, if you've heard of that. Very, you have to be very, very engaging. A lot of body language, and you have to be very encouraging to them and keep the language simple. For example, if you want to teach the word fantastic, you say fan, like fan, you're fanning yourself. Fantastic. Say this with me. Fantastic, right? Doesn't that feel good? Get them engaged. Yeah, when you're teaching kids, and they often provide you with the materials. These companies, they have their own materials all worked out, and you just have to basically present those simple lessons to the children. And if you end up teaching online, you just have to be aware of the different time zones. Like if you're in North America and you're talking to somebody in Beijing, it's morning here and it's evening there. So you have to be probably up really early. And this might be the first time they're talking to somebody in English. So you have to be very encouraging to them. The parents might sit with them. They also want to learn English or to help their kids. So, yeah, be very animated and keep it simple. If the company doesn't provide you with materials, then just find materials that are simple enough for preschoolers. One of my student teachers was teaching toddlers, like babies. They were only a few months old in Japan because the parents were so eager to teach them English already. And I mean, they would just fall asleep. They're babies. What are they supposed to do, right? Yeah. All right. Let's see. Here's another question. Is it a good idea to have vocab or grammar anchor, chart slides displayed, or have the students practice speaking fluently? Um, okay. You can do both. You can just get them to rely on memory, but I also provide them with vocabulary sometimes. And I'll share a good website with you for that. Thank you for that question. Let me see if I can share the screen. Uh-uh. Okay, I hope you can see this. Yeah, this is IELTS up, and it's got speaking, practice vocab tips. Let's say we're doing travel and history, and notice it's got all the vocab worked out, like accommodation, where you stay, and then here's an example. While I'm traveling, my favorite types of accommodation are hotels. So we go through the vocab, and then I'll ask them to tell me about their travels. And here's also an example about travel and holidays. Do you like traveling? Yes, definitely. I think seeing the world, etc. And notice if it's idiom is what life is all about, it gives you the explanation. Except sense is misspelled, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. But it gives you these examples. And then once the students have seen the examples, okay, now it's your turn. Do you like traveling? And I will ask them to use some of that vocabulary if they can. If they cannot, that's okay. Okay, so this is the IELTS exam. You got these questions, and here's the part two that I told you about, where there's a 1 minute prep and they speak for a minute or two. And again, there's a sample answer, and then part three takes it to the next level, higher level questions like tourism. Do you think it will? It's why is it so developed? So more abstract ideas. Okay, I can put this in the chat for you if you like. Yeah, and I'll stop sharing. Okay, hopefully you were able to see that. Okay, good. Good question. Okay, let's see. You like the eyebrow idea? Yeah. They also say to imagine that your audience, when you're giving a presentation, imagine, picture your audience that they're, that they're naked. But I don't recommend it because you might look at yourself and think you're naked. But that was my joke of the day. All right. Anton asked, how true is it that some schools require teachers to speak in a certain way with the British or American accent? The pronunciation of some words differs significantly. Well, yeah, if you end up going to London or India, yes, you might have to focus on British accent, but if you don't have a British accent, you're not going to change your accent um, miraculously, right? They say Canadian accents is one of the most neutral accents. I'm not saying it's the best because they're all good, but you just be yourself. But you can still focus on the British spelling and the British way to pronounce words instead of the American. And then you can expose the students to the different accents, whether it's Southern US or New Zealand, Australian, Scottish, Irish, right? It's still good to expose students. And wherever you're located, the location will tell you which one to focus on. But your own accent, I mean, you can't just change that suddenly, right? So you do your best. All right. Speaking in public can be very hard for a student, and that's true. Yes, that is true. They actually did a survey as to what people are most afraid of, and public speaking was number one, and death was number two. So that means some people would rather die than to give a talk, according to statistics. Yes, it can be intimidating, so we need to expose the students gradually, right? So even if you just ask them to raise their hand and they give an answer, that's a form of public speaking, right? And then gradually they give longer and longer responses. Then you give them these mini tasks. Just speak for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, eventually 1 to 2 minutes, and then they'll be able to give a presentation that is longer, like 15 minutes. But you're not gonna give them the presentation on day one, right? So gradually we get them up to that point. And also you have to tell them that mistakes are our friends because we learn from our mistakes. If we don't make any mistakes, yeah, everything is perfect, but we're not learning anything, right? So treat mistakes as a good thing. It's something to learn from, right? Okay. What prompting techniques do you use? All right. So one of them is the topic that I told you. What's your favorite holiday destination, for example? What's your favorite color? Or if you were to give a gift that represent to your friend that represent your culture, what gift would you give? One of my students said, I would give a stuffed animal, a camel, because it's considered the ship of the Sahara, because they use it for transportation and it would be memorable for them as well. It would be, they would always, it would always remind me of uh, and the good times that we had together. I said that was a good answer. And then I provide that press formula I talked about. Another thing, TOEFL has another type of question where they have to choose from two things. Again, share that with you. Hopefully you can see it. Were you able to see it the last time that I showed you? Okay. All right. Let me share this. And this is TOEFL. So here's an example. Some people think they can achieve more when they're with other people. Others think they're more productive when they're alone. What is your opinion? Explain why. So you see, the topic here is being productive, right? And the two options, it's either with others or being alone. And again, I develop an answer for them, And I tell them, you gotta mention both of those stakes. You need to decide whether to you're gonna go with others or alone. Let's say we're going with others, right? That's gonna be our choice. But we still mention something about alone. So you say, even though some people prefer being alone or doing things alone because they feel they can be more productive, I think it's better to work with others for the following reasons. First of all, and then I give the first reason, it provides an opportunity to share ideas. This way, we can see things from others' perspectives that we may have never thought of. In addition, we can also get more done by working together. Just like geese flying, they can fly further if they fly in a V formation. So for these reasons, I think working in a group is better. Okay, so notice what I did here. So let me stop sharing. Again, I'll put this in the chat. So notice what I did here. I acknowledged the other side, that working alone. Yeah, some people like that. But then I gave my choice that I like to work in a group. And then I gave two reasons. The first one is because you can share ideas, and an example is you see the other's perspectives. And then in addition, or you can say furthermore, moreover. And then I gave the second reason, which was, I forgot what was the second reason I gave. Oh yeah, we can get more done. And then I gave the example of the geese flying in the V formation. And then I gave a summary. So I provide that structure for them, right? It's called acres. So acknowledge the other side. C is your choice. Or you give your two reasons. E, we already know, is examples. And then you give the summary. And that really helps our students because then they have a formula to rely on. It's almost like a crutch, right? And they just follow that formula. And now they're able to give a good answer if you have two choices. And they already started with an although sentence, which is really good because it's a higher level sentence. It's a complex sentence, right? So they really, really like these formulas that I give them, and they feel more comfortable answering those questions. Another type of question is they have to listen to a conversation and then they have to answer the questions based on the conversation, which is more challenging because there is either listening or reading involved, and they have to use that information that is provided on the exam. So that one is called an integrated task. Again, we practice, we look at models, and then I let students practice. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad you could see it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So here is a little off topic. However, so you've been teaching. What do you feel is your favorite age range or group to teach and why? Oh, adults. Absolutely adults. Because they don't have to be there. They want to be there. So they're intrinsically motivated, right? And I don't have to tell them you need this. They know that they need it, and they're just a joy to work with. They're they want to be there. They do the homework, and the progress that they make is often exponential by far. That's my favorite group, but that doesn't mean that you all have to teach adults. You might love teaching kids or teenagers. With kids, you have to be very engaging. Teenagers, they burn through material like that, so you have to be on top of it. You have to prepare a lot of extra materials, and you have to make sure that it's their interest. Because if they don't like to learn about Tesla cars, they will not care, right? So you have to find out what it is that they're interested in. And adults, because of their wide range of background knowledge and life experience, there's so many things they can be interested in. But I still do a needs assessment at the beginning of the semester to see what it is that they're interested in. What's your favorite book? What's your favorite movie? What topics are you interested in? And then I try to uh, um, include those materials that they're interested in because I want to make it interesting for them, right? I also include psychology. Like if you go to like mnemonic devices, if you go to the grocery store, how do you remember 10 items? And you might have heard one is gun, two is shoe, three is tree. And you create this mental picture in the brain. So I like to find topics that are not only helpful for English, but it's also helpful for life, right? It doesn't always happen, but it does happen. Or if you do a biography of someone, I choose like Picasso, that they all know, right? Or another good one was Noble. They really like Alfred Noble's life story because his brother died, and they thought it was him that died, and they called him the Merchant of Death, right? Because he discovered explosive materials, and then it was his brother that had died first. But he said, "I don't want to be remembered like that." And that's when he came up with the idea of a Nobel Prize. And now that's how we remember him by, right? No, nobody even knows that he invented explosives unless you're really smart. Maybe you do know that. Okay, let's go on to the next question. When we talk about teaching speaking, does it mean that we plan a speaking lesson or that in every time we plan for a speaking stage? You can do both. You can do both. If you have a speaking lesson, I would keep it no longer than 45 minutes. Otherwise, it gets tiring for students. But it's also good to include a little bit of speaking in every lesson and keep it like 15, 20 minutes, right? So that it doesn't become overwhelming for students. A little bit of speaking in every class is a good thing to do. Okay, yeah, you can see the aisles. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay. Another thing, I don't know if you have any more questions, but another thing I do, I just show you what I do. I just put up a picture sometimes, and you would be amazed what they come up with. I'll show you this picture and tell me what you think of this picture. Ah, here it is. Tell me what's happening in this picture. And I don't give any background information. This is it. Just they look at the picture. All right, let's stop sharing. Let's see, what did you come up with? Okay, while you're coming up with an idea, let me look at those questions. You have a go to classroom management method in the event that the topic is fizzling, students are becoming restless. You have to either finish it early or ask an additional question to prompt the students to keep going. You have to help them, right? To keep the conversation going or give a stop to it. Okay, here it is. These are the responses. Thinking of his next story. Okay, okay. He's a novelist. Again, for waiting for a wife in the park. Okay, the man is relaxing. Forrest Gump. That's so funny. The man appears to be contemplating an idea, thinking about a memory. Okay, that's good. And then sitting in the park to get away. Oh, okay. One of them said is waiting for the wife and those getting away from the wife. Okay. Interesting. Another enjoying a day outside. Okay. Yes, fountain sharing a bench with the bird. Good. Reminiscing. That's a nice word. Relaxing. Good. And then wait for his friend. Okay. To go on a walk. All right. Thank you. So you see, you get a lot of ideas. One of my students said that the wife passed away, and now they used to come to this bench, and now he's thinking about that. And it's about to rain. How do we know it's about to rain? Or the forecast said rain. You saw that he had an umbrella there. So they pick up on these little details, and you get quite a bit out of it, just this one picture. All right. Another thing I do is um, I'll give you phrases and tell me if it's agree or disagree. I agree with you entirely. Yes, I agree. I beg to differ. That one, if you said disagreeing, you are correct. I don't agree. I don't entirely agree with you. That one is a little bit tricky because it has the word entirely, and it looks like it's agree, but it's not, right? So I don't entirely agree with you. Is disagree. How about I couldn't agree with you more? That's a little bit tricky, right? Because couldn't so it seems like it's negative, but it's actually means I agree with you because I already agree with you 100%. I cannot agree with you more, right? So these are great. And then once we put them into two categories, then we can put them in order. Which one would be the most informal? Fair enough. The next one all the way to the most formal, which is I completely agree with you, right? So the level of formality, which is hard even for native speakers sometimes, but it's good exercise. And now I want you to tell me your favorite season, and then the others either have to agree or disagree with that because now they have the language, and you'll see them using these in the subsequent lessons. So they really enjoy this. Or another thing is, I'll show you this, and tell me what you think the topic will be. Okay, so you see this, and then you see this, and now you see this. So the third one is definitely a dead giveaway if you didn't get it. Because the first thing people think, oh, it's about nature, cherry trees blossoming, and then Mount Fuji, and now we're talking about a girl wearing a kimono, right? So the topic, if you guess Japan, you are correct. That is it. Good. And I want you to describe one of the pictures, and then they describe them. And now you can only use one word, and they say snow. So then we know it's Mount Fuji. The next one, you can only show it, and then this would be a mountain. And one time my students showed this, and I'm thinking, which one is that? It was the kimono, the girl wearing, because she had an umbrella in her hand, and she was rolling the umbrella. I said, oh, that's clever. And then we talk about Japan, eating sushi, and stuff like that. So again, you can have a lot of fun with this. All right. And I also like to include topics that are related to the students. So if you have somebody in your class who is from Japan, that is great, right? Because then they can really tell you about the culture firsthand. So have lots of fun with this. I'll just share one more activity with you. The four corners. We have four corners, and I give you four organs, and tell me what your favorite organ is. Heart, brain, lungs, or liver. So you need to decide which corner to stand in. So physically, you stand in that corner. You discuss it with your partners why, or in breakout rooms, why that is the most important organ. And then you have to get people from the other teams to come to you, to your corner, to agree with you. They love doing that activity. One of the students actually paid $5 to another student to come, but that kind of defeats the purpose because they're not talking. But it's pretty creative solution. But you can do it with organs, for seasons, for colors. You get the idea. So there's so many opportunities to speak. You just have to find a way to get the students engaged, let them have fun with it, and then remember to give feedback as well. So that's all the time we had. And remember, I asked you that if you could complete that short survey, that would be much appreciated. So I'll just put that in the chat. And we hope you enjoyed today's webinar. And we look forward to having you here again next time. So here's the link. If you could complete that, that would be much appreciated. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. We hope you got some ideas, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, you're welcome.